Hello everyone and welcome to my updated efficient lava runecrafting guide. So I do have a lava runecrafting guide on my channel from a few years ago, but it's old, it's outdated, there's a lot of things that have changed since then, and I've been doing a lot of lavas lately, so I thought it was a good time to make a proper updated guide that will give you all the best information. So to start things off with the basic requirements, the only thing that you actually absolutely need to make lava runes is 23 runecrafting. Anything else isn't absolutely required. So from 23 runecrafting onwards, lavas are by far the fastest experience for runecrafting in the game. It is highly recommended that you have at least 67 magic and the lunar diplomacy quest completed so you can use NPC contact. If you don't have NPC contact, then you will need to repair your pouches through the abyss or just not use pouches, and this will make lavas a lot slower. It's also highly recommended that you have 82 magic for magic imbue. You can do lavas fine without magic imbue and it's not a huge hindrance, but having it as a convenience, it makes your XP rates a bit faster, it makes it a bit cheaper, and you get 0 time magic XP, which is also very nice. As far as the items that you will need while doing lava runecrafting, there's kind of a long checklist of different items. Unless you have 99 runecrafting, then you need a fire tiara to get into the altar. You're of course going to need pure essence, and for every pure essence you use, you also need an earth rune. You will need rings of dueling for teleporting close to the fire altar, and you will need binding necklaces because if you don't have a binding necklace equipped when you make combination runes, you only have a 50% success rate, so you'll only be making half as many runes as you otherwise would and only be getting half the XP rate. So those are absolutely essential. You're going to need either astral runes or earth talismans. Astral runes if you're going to use magic imbue, or earth talismans if you aren't. The effect that magic imbue actually has is it makes it so you can craft combination runes without a talisman. That's what the spell is actually for, and if you don't have the spell active, then you will need to use earth talismans. And you'll need a small amount of cosmic runes and maybe some air runes and a few extra astral runes to use NPC contact. It's also highly recommended that you have a rune pouch from the Bounty Hunter store if you're going to be using NPC contact, because that way you can store cosmic and astral and air runes all in there, so you have all the runes that you need for magic imbue and NPC contact. Outside of that, you want to have at least some weight reduction gear so you can keep your weight at 0 or below. And something that is very useful to have is a crafting cape for banking. If you don't have a crafting cape, you'll need to use twice as many rings of dueling, so it's up to you. If you're going for max, I would highly recommend doing 99 crafting before you do 99 rune crafting if you're planning to do lavas or astral runes. But it saves you somewhere around 7 mil GP off the cost of 99 RC with lavas, so it's not a huge amount, but it is a nice thing to have. So as far as your inventory equipment and bank setups, your inventory, I would highly recommend that you copy exactly what I have here. Have your pouches in the far left side of your inventory so you can have them close to your bank, and then have your earth runes directly below your pouches so it'll be at a convenient spot for emptying them. And then just put your rune pouch off to the side. I would recommend putting it here so you can have the items that you need to withdraw, like staminas and rings of dueling and binding necklaces, closer to your pouches for easier banking. It is always best to use only your 2 largest pouches that you have, because using any more pouches than that means more banking and more time at the altar emptying your pouches, and because lava laps are so fast, it's better to just use fewer pouches and get faster laps done. It will make your XP rates faster. It's also worth noting that lavas are still upwards of 50k XP per hour without any pouches, so they're still a very good method for low-level runecrafting for level 3s or pures or whoever else. As far as your equipment, the only things that you absolutely need are the binding necklace, the dual ring, the fire tiara, either a crafting cape or you just wear some weight reduction stuff, and then if you're using imbue, you want to either have a steam staff or a mist staff and a tome of fire, or you could use a mud staff and a tome of fire, but basically you need fire and water runes. And the reason that this particular setup is slightly more optimal is because with a mist staff and a tome of fire, you also have unlimited air runes in addition to the fire and water runes, so you won't need to use any air runes for your NPC contact casts, but the air runes that you use for that are practically negligible, so it's pretty much up to you. You can get away without any graceful if you just want to wear boots of lightness and penance gloves. As you can see, you can keep your weight at 0 or below. With this setup, you can throw in your graceful stuff if you want to, and you could potentially have some room for fashionscaping while still keeping your weight low if you manage to figure out the right setup. Another option is to have a spottier cape or something else, some other cape equipped, and have your crafting cape in your inventory. This way, the right-click teleport option will be in your inventory instead of having to switch to here to select the teleport option. And if you're using mouse keys and you only have one drop-down distance and you're using it for emptying pouches, then the distance moving down your mouse for emptying pouches will be the same as the distance for teleporting with your crafting cape if it's in your inventory. However, if you have it equipped, it's further down because of the boost option here. So basically, if it takes you longer than like 1 or 2 ticks extra to move to your equipment screen and then hit the teleport here rather than doing this in your inventory, then it's probably better to have it this way. You do obviously lose the 1 inventory space, so that's why I say if it takes you a little bit longer to do it this way, then it's probably going to be about the same XP rate overall. So that's an option. It's really up to you. You can figure out what you prefer. As far as bank setup, you just want to have your pure essence and your staminas, dual rings, and binding necklaces close to the bottom right corner of your bank so that they're closer to your inventory and close to the deposit inventory button, because you're going to be filling your bank completely so that you can hit deposit inventory without depositing your pouches and your runes and rune pouch and everything. And for me personally, I like to have a separate runecrafting tab and make it exactly the size of 1 page worth of items in your bank. And I have my client size so that it's the same size as fixed, but just resizable instead. And what this does is just makes it so that if you accidentally click your essence and drag down instead of clicking your essence and then hitting the deposit inventory button, then it won't move your bank down like it would right here since I've just added some items there. It's just a little convenience, but I find it helpful. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to get your bank filled up properly, because as you can see right here, I hit the deposit inventory button and it actually deposited my inventory. So I'm going to unset placeholders, grab this stuff out, and I think I will actually, for demonstration purposes, at least early on in this video, be wearing this and keep this in the inventory for the sake of convenience. I'm going to need to mess up my bank a little bit because I'm used to having my rune pouch over here for farm runs, but I'll do it for the vid. Another thing I'd recommend is to make sure that you don't have placeholders in your bank for any of the stuff that you have equipped, so that way if you accidentally hit the deposit worn items button, then it won't deposit all of your gear and then you'll have to get it back out again. You can disable the deposit worn items button completely right here in your bank settings, but the reason I don't is because if you do that, I guess I can show you, it moves the deposit inventory button way over, and then it moves the search button like right where the deposit inventory button was. So I'm so used to the button being right below the pure essence stack in my bank that it just messes me up. And if you misclick the search button, then it brings you to your main tab and you have to go back to your Runecraft tab, and it's just irritating. So that's why I have the deposit worn items button still there, so that the deposit inventory will be closer to the essence, and then I just make sure that none of the equipment that I have on is placeholdered, and then the only thing that will actually be deposited when I hit this button will be a binding necklace, which isn't a big deal. I'm not going to do that for the sake of this video because I'm wearing gear that I wouldn't normally wear, but yeah, that's a recommendation. So once you have out all the items that you need and have all your placeholders released, then you just go to like a random different tab, so you don't have all the placeholders in your RC tab, and just hit fill bank up here. And that way my bank will be full, and now if I try to deposit my inventory, nothing will go in here. But if I have, say, some essence in my inventory, maybe some of this stuff in there, and I hit deposit inventory, it'll deposit all that stuff, all the stuff I don't need, and I'll keep out all the items that I do need. So that saves a lot of time with banking. It makes it so it's always just a one click to empty the items out of your inventory that you don't need, and that will speed up your banking significantly. Another important thing to have set up is escape to close bank. If you go into your settings menu and then go to the controls panel thing over here, and then go to your key binding thing here, you can check this thing to make it so that escape closes the current interface. And this is extremely convenient for banking. It makes it so instead of having to move your mouse all the way up to here every time, like you withdraw S and then go like this, you can instead just withdraw S and go like this, and immediately it's closed. So definitely use that. It makes banking a lot faster and a lot easier. So the basic lava runecrafting lab looks something like this. You're going to be banking at either Crafting Guild or Castle Wars. So I'll be banking at Crafting Guild here, but banking at Castle Wars would be quite similar. You just wouldn't be using your crafting cape. So you teleport to the duel arena with your Ring of Dueling, and then you're going to be running directly to the fire altar. And you can, I would magic imbue either right before or right after you go into the altar. And then when you're actually making the lava runes, you use your earth runes on the altar while you have an imbue cast active, empty your pouches, and do the same thing again. So if you click on the altar manually with essence in your inventory, it will make fire runes, and you'll probably make a fair amount of fire runes by mistake, but you do have to use the earth runes on the altar to make lava runes. And then after you do that, you just teleport with your crafting cape or your dual ring to the bank, and just fill your pouches, empty your inventory, and repeat. Something very important to note is that if you are using NPC contact, which you will be if you don't have 99 runecraft, then you should take the abyssal book from the dark mage, because it reduces the length of the dialogue options you get with the dark mage when you're NPC contacting with them. I actually have gotten rid of mine because I don't need to repair my pouches anymore, because that's a perk for having 99 RC, but I'm going to grab it back now just so I can do some, so I can show some example laps of what it'll probably look like for people without 99. So that's what the book looks like, and just store it somewhere in your bank. It doesn't really matter where. And as far as NPC contact goes, once you've contacted the Dark Mage once, then you can just right click on the spell and click Dark Mage again, which makes it a bit easier. You don't have to open up the interface and potentially misclick on other NPCs and stuff like that. So my pouch here is degraded right now, so I'm just going to do that. And if you have the Abyssal book in your bank, you just need to go through 2 dialogue options, and then your pouch will be repaired and you're good to go. As far as when you should use NPC contact, the most efficient thing to do is to repair your pouch like 1 lap before it would degrade, so that it never actually does degrade. So that way you don't have to either do a lap with 3 fewer essence every so often, or repair your pouch after it degrades and then have to fill it a little bit more again. So the best way to do that is to keep track of how many laps you've done since the last time you repaired your pouch. The last time I was using NPC contact was a while ago, and they did some updates to the pouch code when they changed it so you don't have to repair pouches also if you have 99 RC. So the last time I did it, I would repair every 9 laps, and I would use just a little timer thing that I could increment to keep track of how many laps I'd done since I last repaired. I only did a little bit of laps today without the RC cape on, but I think that it's something like 12 laps now, so you don't want to repair like every 11 laps, but you probably figure out pretty quickly how many laps you need to do before repairing. But yeah, that is the most optimal thing to do, is to keep track of your laps and repair right before. And as far as when in the lap you actually do it, I just NPC contact as I'm running towards the bank, but it doesn't actually really matter where in the lap you do it. So as far as camera angling and zoom and everything like that, I've found that I prefer to have my camera angled the way you can see it here, with north facing to the left on the screen, and I don't rotate my camera at all, but I do zoom in every time I go to the bank. And the reason that I zoom when I go to the bank is just because it makes it a lot easier to click back on the bank quickly and save potentially 1 or 2 ticks while banking, which will definitely add up slowly over time. So yeah, I just have an F key bound to the settings interface, and I switch to that and zoom out and in each time I do a lap. And I've gotten quite used to it, and I definitely would recommend giving it a try. It seems like it might be kind of annoying, but once you get used to it, it's really hardly any extra effort, and it makes it so much easier to bank. I think there probably are also some third-party client features you might be able to use that would allow you to like do a 1-click to zoom all the way in or out, but I haven't actually messed around with that. You can still do a 1-click to zoom all the way in or out just with the normal client, but you do have to switch to the settings interface. Something that's very important to do is to sync up your binding necklaces and dual rings. It's a little bit less relevant if you aren't using crafting cape to bank, but either way, probably still worth trying to do. You will use exactly the same amount of dual rings as binding necklaces if you are banking at Crafting Guild, because binding necklaces have 16 charges and you use 2 charges per lap, since it's 1 charge per inventory of essence you use, and dual rings have 8 charges and you use 1 teleport per lap, so you are ending up using 1 of each every 8 laps. So having them synced up makes it a lot easier to keep track of them. You just replace both at the same time, since they'll both degrade on the same lap. Sometimes you might accidentally make fire runes, or you might teleport too soon and not do your second craft or something like that, in which case it will result in having an extra charge or 2 on your binding necklace, and that will put it out of sync with your Ring of Dueling. And the way to remedy this that I recommend is just continue runecrafting until your Ring of Dueling degrades, and then you probably will only have 1 charge left on your binding necklace, which isn't good enough for another lap. So the only way to reset your binding necklace charges, since they remain stackable and don't become separate items when they uncharge, is to destroy a binding necklace, and then it will reset your current binding necklace charge back to 16. So once you do run into the point where you have just used up the last charge on your Ring of Dueling and you still have like 1 charge left on your binding necklace, then I would just pull out an extra binding necklace from the bank and destroy it. And then that way the one you have equipped will reset to 16 charges, and then you just have to put on another Ring of Dueling and you should be all set. Another thing that's important to understand about lava runecrafting as opposed to normal, like pretty much any other type of runecrafting, is that there isn't actually any delay on crafting runes at the altar. So you'll notice that I craft the runes at the altar very quickly and then teleport away very quickly. And this is part of the reason that lavas are so fast. Even if this wasn't the case, they'd still be quite fast, but it saves quite a bit of time, since normal runecrafting is a 5-tick delay between every craft. And because this is the case, it does take a little bit more skill to get your pouches emptied quickly enough to 1-tick your pouches, as you'd call it, since you're getting the second XP drop 1 tick after the first XP drop. And it's basically impossible to do without mouse keys of some form. It's not too difficult to 2-tick your pouches, either with or without mouse keys, which is what most people end up doing, because getting the one tick does require a fair amount of practice, and even still I mess it up fairly often. But it's definitely a good thing to try to do. Basically, you just have to get the timing perfect for it. You have to kind of start emptying your pouches a little bit preemptively to when you actually see the XP drop appear, and the exact timing for it will also heavily depend on your ping. I tend to play on about 20 to 25 ping, but if you have higher ping, then you'll need to start emptying your pouches a little bit earlier. But if you try to empty your pouches too soon, then you wouldn't have completed the first craft yet, and then it won't actually do anything, and you'll just have to do it again. So yeah, the only thing I can really say for one ticking your pouches is just practice and look closely at clips of people doing it, and try to get the timing just right. And you can tell whether you've done it correctly or not by if you see the XP drops appear very close together like that. So one ticking your pouches and fast banking are the challenging parts of lava runecrafting. The rest is obviously pretty straightforward. I personally would say that fast banking is a lot more difficult than one ticking your pouches. Zooming in makes your banking a lot easier, but basically the hardest part of banking is saving a tick when you are clicking back on the bank the first time after you've filled your pouches. If you don't click on the bank fast enough after you fill your pouches, you'll lose a tick there. So what you want to do is just get used to filling your pouches and clicking back to the bank very quickly, so it's all kind of a fluid motion. It's a hard thing to do and it'll take a lot of practice, but yeah, it's mainly just clicking your pouches and then clicking back to the bank really quickly, and then your bank will open a tick sooner than it otherwise would. Another thing that's obviously worth mentioning is that in this video I am using mouse keys, and I will link in the description my mouse key setup guide, where I show pretty much exactly how I set up my mouse keys for runecrafting. I do essentially have two different like mouse distance drops with mouse keys, so I can have it for both emptying pouches and banking. But that is very possible with mouse keys, and you can see more info about that in the mouse keys guide that I have. And the last thing that is worth mentioning, it hasn't come out yet, but I think it's coming out this week, is that you'll be able to shift and left click to empty your pouches rather than having to right click and hit the empty option. So that would make it a little bit less mouse key intensive, but that hasn't come out yet, but I think it will be coming out very soon. So you will be able to do that. I personally probably won't bother because I'm so used to how I do it now, but it might be nice for some people. It is worth quickly mentioning that if you have a max cape, then you can actually wear full graceful while doing lava runecrafting. I don't bother myself because I'm a fashionscape nerd and I don't really like graceful that much, but because the max cape gives you the crafting cape teleport and also acts as as a graceful cape, and you know, it gives you the runecraft cape perk of non-degrading pouches and acting as a fire tiara. You can have it effectively full graceful and save a little bit on staminas, but that's only if you're maxed. And you know, who the fuck runecrafts when they're maxed anyways? However, if you do just have 99 RC and 99 crafting but you're not maxed, what you can do is equip your runecrafting cape, and then you won't need to put on a tiara or anything, and your pouches won't degrade, and then you just keep the crafting cape in your inventory. And this will be a lot faster than having to, like, because you won't have to repair your pouches anymore, this will still be faster even though you're losing in inventory space. But yeah, as a max nerd who likes fashionscape, this is my current outfit. The only difference between wearing graceful and not wearing graceful, if you can wear the full set, which you can only do if you're maxed, is saving maybe like 1 stamina potion per hour, which is not very much. It adds up to like 10 or 15 mil GP saved for 200 mil runecraft. One other thing I totally blanked on mentioning so far is the XP rates, which I don't really think about that much anymore, but I think perfect tick if you're not 99, so you have to repair pouches, is somewhere around 74k, and perfect tick if you are 99 and don't have to repair pouches is about 79k. Those rates are ridiculously difficult to get. Like, I don't think anybody will ever do it. So realistic rates, for me personally, I get like 75 to 77k, I think, doing post 99, and pre 99 I was doing, or pre update actually, I was doing I think 70 to 73k XP per hour. It will take a fair amount of practice to get even rates that high, but you can realistically expect to get like at least like 60 or 65k at 75 plus. And before 75, I think you can get maybe like 50 to 60k when you don't have your giant pouch yet. So the last thing to talk about in this video is supply costs. So you know how many of the different resources you need to buy and how much you potentially will be spending GP wise. So I'm going to throw up on screen now the prices of all the different items as of making this video. Obviously prices change, so you know, go to the RS Buddy site or the Grand Exchange site or whatever and check the price of items as you're watching this video. But I'm also going to put up on screen the amount of supplies that you're going to need for getting to different levels. From 23 to 50, here's the different supplies that you need. It will only cost like 300k most likely unless supplies go up a lot. At 50, you get a higher level pouch, so it becomes a little bit cheaper since you're carrying more essence per run. And these are the supplies that you'll need from 50 to 75. And then from 75 plus, I'm just going to represent it in terms of supplies that you would use per 1 million runecrafting XP, since I think that's a little bit easier to think about. So per 1 mil RC XP with 75 plus, which you know is the majority of the time that you're going to spend runecrafting. If you're carrying 45 essence per run, then it will be 2,117 runs, assuming that you're using imbue. And as far as the GP per XP, at most, if you're not using crafting cape, it's somewhere around like 2.8 or 2.9 GP per XP for runecrafting lavas, so it's really not that expensive. And if you are using a crafting cape, then you don't need to use as many dual rings, and it brings it down to around 2 to 2.3 GP per XP. And another thing worth considering is that you could kind of exclude the price of the Astral Runes, since you are getting magic XP from those. And you could kind of think of it as the cost of magic, since you're probably going to be using it towards maxing as far as getting that free magic XP, or like time-wise free magic XP. So I kind of think of it as separate, like that's the cost of magic and the rest of it is the cost of RC. If you think of it that way, then it's like 1.7 GP per XP. And this is assuming that you don't sell your lava runes, but if you do sell your lava runes, I think they sell for 3 GP each. And it does actually bring down the cost of lavas by about 0.3 GP per XP if you do sell the lavas. So if you have 99 crafting, all of the stuff, you're excluding the cost of magic and you're selling back your lava runes, then it can be considered as low as like 1.4 GP per XP for just the cost of the RC. But as I said, prices are subject to change, but hopefully seeing these numbers are helpful for you to know how many of the different items you need to buy. So I think that pretty much covers everything for lava runecrafting. Hopefully this guide has been helpful to you guys, and if you have any further questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to drop a like if you did, and I will see you guys all later.